One of the questions I get asked over and over is, which drone should I get? Especially with the release of the DJI Mavic Air 2. Everyone's asking, should I get this drone or should I stick with the Mavic 2 Pro? Well, every drone has different capabilities, and DJI has a whole lineup of drones that's suited for different styles of shooters. So in this video, I'm gonna go through each drone from the DJI Mavic Mini all the way up to the P4P to explain what the capabilities are of each drone and which drone you should get. All right, guys, let's get into it. So the best way to understand which drone to get is just to systematically go through them and talk about what features each drone has and what makes each one unique. So the first one we're going to start with is the DJI Mavic Mini. So this one is the smallest and the lightest and the cheapest out of the entire lineup, but that doesn't mean you can't get good footage with it. I've been shooting with it for a little while now, and I've been pretty impressed with the type of footage that I've been able to get out of this drone when you put it in the right situations. So this drone is definitely catered towards beginners. It's super lightweight and it kind of feels plasticky. However, the reason that they did that is because it's under the legal weight limit in certain places to be able to fly a drone without a drone's pilot's license. So this is only 249 grams, super tiny and super light. So the max resolution of the camera on this drone is 2.7K, and you only get 30 frames, 25 frames, or 24 frames per second in that mode. If you want to do any sort of slow motion, you have to bump it down to 1080p, and you can do 60 frames per second. And with this, you only get one color profile. There is no log or flat settings, so basically what you shoot is what you get. So for first-time flyers, this drone's great because you have quick shots, which are these automation modes where you just click a button, set your center marker, and then the drone goes through and performs an action that makes a very cinematic looking shot. And also this drone uses the DJI Fly app, which has a ton of templates to make it super simple to be able to make quick edits that then you can share on social media. Now, in terms of obstacle avoidance, the only sensor you have is underneath the drone to sense like where the ground is, but there's no 360 sensors on this, so you really have to watch where you're flying. And it does come with some propeller guards so that if you do bump into things, it's really not going to hurt the drone. Like I said, this drone's super lightweight, so if you crash it, it's not going to be that big a deal. I think that this drone is like perfect for beginners. It's the perfect starter drone. And if you are more advanced, you're going to be surprised at the quality of footage that you can get out of this if you need a super lightweight, tiny little drone. This drone is only $400 and it's the cheapest out of the entire lineup. And guys, I put together a few other videos all about the DJI Mavic Mini on how you can get the best looking footage out of this camera. And I'll put a link to those videos down below in the description so you can check them out after this video. So the next drone in the lineup is the DJI Mavic Air 2. And my favorite drone out of the entire lineup has always been the DJI Mavic Air because of how small it is, but it still had a 4K camera that could get some really good looking shots. And they've definitely taken the DJI Mavic Air and upgraded it in so many ways. And for me, this is like the perfect drone. And let me explain why. They basically took the Air and added the Mavic design to it so it looks like the other drones in the lineup. And they've added a ton of features to this drone from the original Air. This is definitely the drone that bridges the gap from beginner to pro, because beginners can pick this up and start flying if they've never flown a drone before, but pros will be able to take this drone and get some really good looking footage from the camera. So for beginners, you have the quick shots like you do in the Mavic Mini, and also it uses the DJI Fly app. So if you were to jump from the DJI Mavic Mini up to this one, it would feel very similar because it uses the same app. For pilots that want a little bit more control over your footage, this camera does incorporate manual controls. You can control your shutter speed, your ISO, your white balance, and also you get two different color profiles. You get your normal color profile, and then you get Cine Like D. And Cine Like D works great. It's not a completely flat profile. However, it does make the image flatter so that you can do more of a color grade on the footage. Now, in terms of obstacle avoidance, this drone has no sensors on the side. It only has a sensor on the front, the back, and the bottom. So you do have to be careful when you're flying in situations where you might run sideways into an object. And one thing that's cool that they incorporate from the DJI Mavic 2 is a landing light underneath the drone. So no matter what situation you're flying in, if it's a little bit darker, it's gonna illuminate the landing area and it's much safer to land your drone. Now, hands down, my favorite features of this drone are the fact that you can shoot 4K 60 frames per second and also the active track. So these are two huge improvements from the original Mavic Air. Also, they added OcuSync 2.0, which makes it so that you don't ever lose transmission when you're flying. Three really awesome things. But the 4K 60 allows you to slow down your 4K footage. So it's a huge advantage over, say, the Mavic 2 Pro, because that one only has a 4K 30 camera. The only other camera in the lineup that has 4K 60 is the P4P. So if you want a small camera that shoots 4K 60, Mavic Air 2 is the one to go for. Now, in terms of slow motion on the Air 2, you have the best options out of any of the drones because you have 4K 60, like I said, but you also get at 1080p, 120 and 240 frames per second. This is the only one that does 240 slow-mo. Now, the Active Track 2.0 works great, and I've been testing it in a few different situations, and the camera stays locked on. So I'm super excited to use this drone for things like following me as I'm mountain biking and just doing things where I'm more active, but I don't have someone else to control the drone. Now, this drone incorporates a new 1/2-inch sensor, which gives it more capabilities than some of the other drones. So with this sensor, you can do HDR video, which is a huge improvement. And also it's a 48 megapixel sensor, so you can do 8K photos and 8K hyperlapses. So this drone is super lightweight and is one of my favorites out of the whole lineup. And if you want to see a more detailed review about this drone, I'll put a link down below in the description to a specific review I did about the Mavic Air 2. This one is $800, and I think a lot of you are really going to like flying with this drone. So let's talk about the Mavic 2 lineup. And what's interesting about the Mavic 2 is you have two camera options for this drone. The drone is the exact same, but the cameras are unique in different ways. So you have a zoom option, and then you have a pro option. Now, this drone has a robust obstacle avoidance system, and it is heavier than the Air, but it's still not crazy heavy. Like, you could still put it in your backpack and travel with it, no problem. So for obstacle avoidance, you have dual sensors on the front, on the back, and on the bottom. You have sensors on both of the sides, and then you also have infrared sensors on the top and the bottom. So no matter what situation you're flying in, it's going to avoid hitting any objects when all of your sensors are turned on. Both cameras shoot 4K 30 frames per second, but if you want to do slow motion, then you can shoot at 2.7K at 60 frames per second, and then at 1080p, you can get 120 frames per second. So some good slow-mo options in this drone. One thing that's really cool about this drone and also the Mavic Air 2 is that they include 8 gigabytes of internal storage. So if you forget your SD card, then you could still fly using that internal storage and get some good shots. So in terms of automation modes, you have Active Track 2.0, just like the Mavic Air 2. You also have the quick shots like you have on both of the previous drones, but also this has a few other automation modes like waypoints, where you can set destinations for your drone to fly, and then it will fly a predetermined path. So a few more options for automation on this drone. Okay, so now let's dig into what the differences are between the zoom and the pro camera. The zoom option offers a 4x optical zoom and a 2x digital zoom. And this is really unique. I actually really like this zoom option because it allows you to get some really dynamic looking footage that you normally can't get with a drone. When you use a long lens, you zoom all the way in and you do movements like an arc, you can create some crazy parallax that normally doesn't exist on these drones because they're typically a wide lens. And you can also do things like the vertigo effect in camera, and you're staying at that 4K resolution. Normally when you want to get these effects, you have to punch in on your footage, and that degrades the quality. So this stays at 4K and uses an optical zoom to achieve some really interesting and unique results. So I think the Mavic 2 Zoom is the perfect drone if you don't want to get close to your subject. So wildlife shooters will really benefit from this drone. If you also just want that added flexibility of having different lens options by just a flick of a button on the controller, then this might be the drone for you. So the Pro is definitely catered towards those of you who really want to get the best looking image out of your drone. It features a 1-inch Hasselblad sensor, and it looks pretty amazing. Now with this sensor, you get 10-bit log footage, so you can shoot in a completely flat profile and be able to do some pretty incredible things with the color grade. Now this camera also features an aperture, so it goes from 2.8 to 11. So that allows you to make your adjustments to not only your shutter speed ISO, but also your aperture to be able to control your exposure. If you're looking to get the best quality and you want to have the most control over your image, then the Pro is the one that you want to go for. Now guys, I did a complete breakdown of the Mavic 2 Zoom versus the Mavic 2 Pro. So if you guys want to see more information about these two cameras and which one would be better suited for you, then I'll put a link down below in the description to that video as well. Now in terms of price, the Zoom is around $1,300 and the Pro is around $1,600. Now this brings us to our final drone in the lineup, and that is the P4P version 2.0. Now this drone's not like the next level up from the Mavic 2 Pro, it's more of a sidestep. So this drone is also around $1,600, just like the Pro, and it also features a 1-inch sensor. Now it's not a Hasselblad 1-inch sensor, but the sensor still looks great. Now one of the huge benefits of the P4P over the Mavic 2 Pro is that this camera can shoot 4K 60. So you get a 1-inch sensor that shoots 4K 60. The only other camera that does 4K 60 is the Air 2, and that one is a lot more limited in terms of the control over your camera's sensor. The Pro and the P4P have the most control over the sensor. So this drone is definitely catered towards professionals. In my experience flying with it, it's a lot more responsive than some of the other drones. So you really have to have an understanding of how to actually maneuver a drone in the air to be able to get good shots using the P4P version 2.0. This drone is a perfect fit for someone who shoots action sports or someone who needs to shoot in extreme weather environments because it is super powerful and it does move fast in the air. So this drone would be perfect for you if you need more power out of a drone and you want things like 4K 60 with a 1-inch sensor. So personally for me, the Mavic Air 2 is my favorite drone out of the whole lineup. You get a ton of flexibility packed in a super small body, and you get some really good footage out of this drone. Now guys, I'll put links down below in the description to where you can check out more information about any of these drones. And also, I highly suggest you check out this video right here. It's the biggest mistakes that new pilots make starting out. And I bet you some of you pros out there also make these mistakes. I'll see you over there.